Step 4, client receives event on the client, Supabase, next line dot channel, argument profiles, next line dot on, argument Postgres underscore changes, comma, dot dot dot. So other argument, this is not magic. It's just socket receive bytes, JSON parsed, callback invoke. So the socket from the client received the bytes and then it parsed the JSON and then the callback, depending on the river pad and the routing and the widget rules will act based on that. River pad provider invalidated. So example, final provider equal future provider. Argument ref async open semi-curly bracket next line return fetch profile open and close parenthesis semicolon next line closing parenthesis closing closing semi-curly bracket closing parenthesis semicolon. When real-time event arrives, so for example there's like a change, there's an event but it's the same value, so this is the code ref that invalidate argument profile provider semicolon. Key idea, riverpad does not listen to Supabase. Your code connects them. Step 6. Riverpad recomputes lazily. Nothing happens immediately. Recompute only occurs if a widget is watching. So if a widget is watching to provider, that's the only time it recompute. But if it's not watching the provider or the node, therefore it will not change based on that value, or another provider depends on it. This is lazy evaluation. Step 7, UI reveals. UI does not pull data, it reacts to emitted values. River pad cache, exact, precise meaning. This is critical. Your understanding here is currently too vague. Sorry, the UI does not pull data, it just reacts to emitted values by the riverpad. So the UI depends on riverpad and the route, not the other way around. So riverpad cache, exact precise meaning. This is your critical. Your understanding here is currently too vague. What riverpad cache is not? It's not IndexedDB, not this persistence, not a database, not snapshot history, not time travel. What riverpad is an in-memory memorization of provider outputs, or the current value of provided by the output at runtime, keyed by dependencies. So depending on how the current setup of dependencies, like log in, log out, on blog post, that's the current state of the provider output. That's it. So concrete example, final A equal provider argument ref 210 semicolon next line final B equal provider argument ref 2 ref dot watch argument A times 2. So execution, first read of B, result computes 20, stores it. The next step, read again, returns cache 20. Then A change step is a change to 10 again. Result, no recompute. The next line A changes to 11. Result, recompute B equals to 22. So this cache lives in your RAM. So as you can see, depending on how the widget changes its value, it recomputes based on that. And then it's live on RAM, scope to provider life cycle, cleared when unused, auto dispose. And it's also scoped based on the river pad life cycle, not the other way around again, not based on the UI. Though the UI helps with the values being entered to the river pad, but still depends on the river pad if it will accept that inputs or not. So it's cleared when unused, auto-disposed. So this cache will be cleared, of course, if it changed the values or the dependencies. And that will not be the cache that will be put on RAM if you change it to 11. Now it will become 22. The current state will become 22. Of course, if you restart the PC, that will be a different scenario. You will need to go back to the default state again. So why this matters to earlier topics? So the default state also depends on the highly dependent on how the dependency would change over time with respect to data. So why this matters tied to earlier topic, this is exactly like CPU register caching. So the register caching we did to L3, L2, L1. L1 cache coherence. So the cache coherence kind of like the same dependency as the same cache, so that you won't get like a random bug. So it's the same principles. Column store vector reuse. So remember, in column store vector, we reuse it. Same principle. Don't recompute if inputs didn't change. Riverpad cache versus Firestore plus IndexedDB. These are very different layers, and this is where your understanding blends them too much. Firestore plus IndexedDB, purpose, offline persistence. So when you like disconnect the internet, it's still on your browser. So that's its purpose. Network resilience because it's cache. I mean, even if you remove the net, the cache or the app are still there. So you can like change your inputs and then wait for the internet to come back to be able to persist that in database. This back cache characteristics serialized data, schema aware because it's non-relational database, versioned, and survives reloads. Riverpad cache purpose, avoid recomputation. So avoid recomputation in logic case and then onto the database on the Riverpad, and it reduced the rebuilds of the widget because again the Riverpad depends on the widget, and maintain referential stability. So kind of like with Node, this is just how the node data structure works, or the graph, because they are interconnected. You were able to maintain that referential stability. Characteristics, they are all in memory, ephemeral, no persistence, no serialization. So with Firestore, you kind of serialize it in database because you like send it in cache to the database to be able to remember, so that the next request will be faster because it's cache in the database. But for Riverpad cache, it's not persistent in your database. It's just in memory, and it will goes away when you restart the PC. Unlike with Firestore, key distinction important. Firestore cache is data storage. Riverpad cache is computation storage. So you were implicitly mixing this. Your biggest errors of omission, very important. Error number one, you blur data and computation. You often ask, is this stored like Redux, like JSON, like database? But Redux or Riverpad store values. So the Redux and the Riverpad store values, in your in memory. The database store facts or the single source of truth. CPU cache stores the results of the computation, right? When it's all already executed and then went back to the database and then went back to your client. Same word, state, different semantics. So you can see that these states are different in different layer. Error number two, You treat reactivity as a transport mechanism. Reactivity is not networking, syncing, messaging. It is dependency-driven computation. So it's just in memory. It depends on how you structure the code, kind of like with code and data in OS. So it's all in the heap and the stack on how it changed based on user inputs, kind of like the runtime behavior, whether it's the UI, I mean the user is logged in, etc. So you kind of build the entire user space up and then show that to the user, and then the app will just do its job, kind of like an API in itself. So it is a dependency driven recomputation. Supabase sends data, Riverpad decided what to do with it with regards to how it would present that application layer to the user. Error number 3, you think emit implies control flow. Emit does not. Jump code, interrupt execution like the OS, forces updates. Emit simply makes a new value observable. So it's not a control flow like a branch if else in a CPU, or like automatically when you say emit, it doesn't necessarily force updates. Because like what I've said, it caches the previous value. So it just observe that new value so that we keep on track. If we need to change that based on our app logic or riverpad, therefore we would change it. But if it's the same value, why would we need to change it? It's just waste of our code or in-memory resources. So consumers decide what happens next. So the consumers or the riverpad and the connection to widget will decide what happens next based on that value. Subtle misunderstanding that will block you later. You over focus on where code runs. You keep asking, is this in CPU, in L1, in JS engine, in OS? That's good curiosity, but dangerous if not structured. Correct mental model. You have language semantics, which is the Dart, and then the runtime model, and then the memory model, execution model. Riverpad lives in language semantics, which is in the Dart. Runtime model, which is which is actually a Flutter VM. So that's what's running your Dart app, the Flutter virtual machine. The memory model is the heap objects. So it slices a pie of your memory heap objects. And then those are not execution units. Those are just user space. And then kind of like, you're still defining um, you're defining transformation, but you're defining it intelligently, because as you can see, it's organized. We have language, the runtime, and then how it is being allocated in memory. One unifying model, keep this. Here's the single graph that unifies everything we discussed. We have Supabase DB row, so event will trigger network message, then it will send to browser JSON parser, and then it will become the main object. So the domain object, kind of like the riverpad parent node, and then it will decide on it will have proper invalidation or provider invalidation, whether it needs to invalidate if the output is the same, or it will need to recompute graph recomputation, which is the DAG, and all the dependency will recompute. So that is also kind of how it maintains the random bug or random UI issues. And then memoized output. So the memoized output, it will cache that again, and then UI rebuild. As you can see, before it show it to the user, it does the logic that it needs to cache to save those values for later. Every arrow is data flowing, value changing, dependency triggering. So instead of like code, you can think of it as like a data, right? No magic, no mystery. An interview grade explanation. RiverPad is a dependency graph based memoization system. Providers emit new values when their dependencies change. So it depends on providers. So this river path is the graph data structure. So you can think of all of the nodes or all of the provider like a graph data structure. And then the provider emits new values, or the node emits new values when their dependencies change. Of course, that depends on who watch all of the node's dependencies, and it also depend on widget or the UI front end layer or action on the front end, but the computation is lazy and cache. Backend systems like Supabase emit events when database row change, but client-side state libraries, so the state libraries, which are the riverpad, decide how and when to recompute derived state. So that derived state that you get from Supabase, like a change in row, so that's still a state, will be decided the final decider that will show to the user what state it is the client side library, and the how it will look like in pixel will depend on your widget. This separation keeps atomic data updates distinct from reactive UI updates. So again, you're like declaring your code, how it will transform and how you will present the data to the user. So that answer signals deep understanding.